Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to the Four Lights Wellness podcast. And my name is Omid. I'm going to be talking a lot about what I actually do for a living, but I really want to make this something that's, tangible, something that you can actually use in your daily life to make sure that you're doing the best you possibly can for yourself. One of the first things I'm going to talk about is what in the heck do I do when I go to a party and somebody inevitably asks me that question of, oh my God, so what do you do? Okay. Here's the thing. I teach people exercise, but I'm not a personal trainer. I teach people the basics of fundamental health, but I don't necessarily like calling myself a health coach or somebody that's a nutrition specialist or anything like that, because I don't really think calories are something you should functionally matter. I'm also in the rehab space. People come to me with a lot of different aches and pains in their body, and I can help to treat a lot of that stuff, but I'm not a physical therapist. And then there's this whole holistic thing to kind of look at the body and the person from all of the different angles and everything like that. But I'm not necessarily a holistic guy in the sense that I'm going to pull out chakras and tuning forks and crystals and incense and all of that kind of stuff. You'll see I'm fairly normally well dressed. So what I usually tell people in that situation at the party is I teach people how to take care of themselves. Because we as a society have forgotten that there are just some basic fundamental things that we have to do in order to keep this thing that we call a body that's moving through this thing that we call a life functional. And the reason people hire me is they're getting off of that life path. Something happens that stops them from being able to enjoy their life. It's never the knee that hurts that's the problem. It's the knee that stops them from going up and down the stairs in their own house. And in fact, people are more ready to sell their house to get a single floor house than to actually take care of their legs. And then I have to come in and say, well, your knee hurts because you're sitting too much and you're not actually getting in and out of chairs and desks and going for walks and doing all the basic stuff. So I teach people how to take care of themselves. And the biggest, easiest way to explain how I do that is there's 6 things that you have to remember. The 6 foundational principles to your health that are pretty easy to follow, but also kind of boring, and you gotta say no to a lot of other things. So, the first one, everything starts in the brain. I know there's a lot of people that talk about soul and spirit and all this kind of stuff and the collective consciousness and the Akashic records and all of that stuff. But let's just start basics. Everything starts in your brain. So, your thoughts are actually one of the best indicators, one of the best litmus tests you can use to figure out what you actually believe in your life. And yes, your thoughts do influence every single part of your being, not only from the cells themselves to the organs to all that kind of stuff, but also how you approach the world or the lack of approaching the world that a lot of people actually run into. So you really have to get that thinking of stuff dialed in. There's a lot of different ways I've worked with this through my career with people. I've done extensive training in neuro-linguistic programming for a lot of things. I have kept a journal almost every single day for the past 20 years because I still believe that getting it out of our heads onto a piece of paper is kind of like clearing out the inbox, and you can really put a lot of stuff on paper to kind of see, hey, how am I actually thinking about the world around me? How am I treating myself and others? And if you really want to get even better with the thinking, get a voice recorder. You record yourself through the day. The thoughts turn into the words and you start to hear your thoughts coming out of your mouth before you even have time to process it. So if you're not already doing that sort of stuff, thinking is the number one way that I really help people get back to taking care of themselves. Because let's just face it, if you heard from other people half the bullshit you told yourself, you would punch them in the face, wouldn't you? So we got to clean that stuff up as best you can. Number 2, the breathing. The breathing is really the foundation for everything that happens in your entire life. And I'm going to say it this way. You come out, used to be that the doctor slapped you on the butt to get you to breathe because it was the number one thing. And not, oh my God, that's child abuse. No, not breathing is child abuse. Not having a fully functioning diaphragm that can actually pull in oxygen to fill up and fuel your entire body for everything you want to do, including the thoughts, including the movement, including the digestion, including the heartbeat. All of that stuff requires this fundamental foundational molecule that we call oxygen. And then it's up to you to actually pay attention to the breathing, because the breathing will change based on your state. Let's say, for example, you had a horrible day at work. Hey, you've been stuck in this position all day, just bombarded with this thinking stuff going on. Diaphragm's gonna get a little stuck tight, and now you can't breathe. And then you come home from that and you haven't taken that rescue breath yet. I talk about that with my clients, what a rescue breath actually is to get them out of a triggered state. But you take that nasty negative breathing, that lack of oxygen, lack of blood flow to the head into your relationship at home. Now you got a spouse fight. Now all of a sudden you have a poor night of sleep because of a lack of breathing. Now you can't show up for the workout the next day and rinse and repeat at your work the next day. When if you just had a basic sense of breathing, there's millions of ways to do it. The 4-7-8 breathing, the box breathing, the fire breath, the lion breath, all of this stuff. Just pick one and have a foundation to that. Just one way that you can do it 30 seconds or less to completely transform your entire life. It really does add up quite a bit. There's tons of research showing that breathing has actually been related to a lot of things like cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's, dementia, cancer, a lot of stuff that we got to be taking care of. So breathing is number 2. Number 3, moving. If you're not moving, your body is dying. I can't say it any simpler than that. Most of the metabolic processes in the body, if not all of the ones that clear waste, all of the lymphatic system, the glymphatic system for the brain, the cardiovascular system, everything relies on pumps and movement to try and get waste through the body. And if you don't believe me, well, just look up. We're going to eventually see that ISS coming over our heads, and there's a bunch of astronauts in the ISS, and they have to exercise for 3.5 hours every single day just to keep their baseline there. And they still lose the fight because they're not moving with gravity around in this environment to keep themselves healthy. So if NASA's figuring it out, you got to have some baseline of movement. And like I said, it's baseline. I'm not expecting you to have to go run an ultra marathon next year. No. But I do say, hey, let's start with some flexibility and stretching stuff. Let's get these tissues actually moving a little bit with that breathing to start clearing out a lot of the junk. Because the junk, if you're not moving it out of the system, starts to turn into a whole bunch of nastiness that starts to make you sick, and then you land in my office, right? After that, we got eating. Everybody has to eat. I know there are plenty of stories of swamis out there that can, breathe light and only light, and they start to sustain themselves for a long amount of time. Yeah, I don't know. That's what I'll say about that one. But I do know that most people that actually have issues are not eating well. And here's the problem. What does eating well mean? Well, what do you need? I got a thumbprint right here. It's completely different than the cameraman's. I've got a thumbprint here. It's completely different than my wife's, than my daughter's, that even though they're genetically related with the kid, it's like, well, this is mine, and there hasn't been one like it, nor will there ever be. So why would your gut be any different? You see, some people say carbs are bad because carbs are bad in scientific studies where they take all of the data and they aggregate it and make it an average of stuff, and they try and make you average. You are not average, my friend. You are an individual with your own genetic makeup, with your own stuff that you've been exposed through your entire life, with your own age, with your own gender. All of these things matter to the diet you're going to eat. Heck, even the temperature outside will change what you should be eating on any given day. How much you worked out will change the amount of protein. I mean, think about it that way. It's so simple to say, what do you need for your baseline of nutrition? And what are your goals? How about water on top of that? The amount of water that each individual person needs, they start to say things like, half your body weight in ounces of water. Yeah, that's a great baseline, but what if you just did the sauna? Well, you're gonna sweat a whole lot more. What if you just went for a big workout and you sweat a whole bunch that way? What if it's cold versus hot? You're gonna have a lot of different things that happen for you. And even some people that have crazy diseases out there might need some special water to help them heal from some stuff. Some people that are acidic might need alkaline water. Those types of things come into it a little bit. I individualize that for every single client because I do a lot of the testing for that stuff to see where their body is at. But pick a baseline for you. And if it's only 2 or 3 glasses that you're having right now, if that, don't jump up to 8 to 10 a day. You're just gonna run to the bathroom every 5 minutes to try and pee that stuff out because your kidneys and your bladder can't handle it yet. Kick it up, let's say 1 or 2 glasses every couple of days. Mineralize the water. There's plenty of things out there, the salt packets, the liquid IVs, the elements. I honestly, whenever I don't have any of that stuff with me, I just take whatever pinch of salt I can, drop a little tiny bit in the water and drink that. The key is if you just taste the salt, it's too much, unless it's one of those specialized things that has special types of sodium and potassium and all that kind of stuff in there to balance you out. Otherwise, you can run into some problems. But long story short, if you're not hydrating, you are drying yourself out, and all of that stuff that's bothering you, arthritis starts to get huge in the body, any type of osteoporosis in the body, a lot of that's caused by a lack of water in those joints. So make sure you're getting water in there. And the last thing is sleep. Sleep is one of the ones that I struggled with for a really, really long time. And it still, to this day, every time I lose a night of sleep, I come back to a really, really good night of sleep, and I'm just still blown away at how powerful sleep really is. It's the number one way that you restore yourself. Number one. There's nothing else you're going to replace it with. There's no amount of cryo tanks that you're going to get into, red light therapies you're going to get into, all of the pulsed electrofrequency stuff, the massages, all of that stuff. You can do all of the pills you want to. You're never going to even come close to the power of sleep. And I don't care how good Game of Thrones was last night. God, that's a dated reference, but still, I'm not going to sacrifice my sleep. Never again in a million years, especially having a kid. It's even 5% of loss of sleep turns me into 5% more of an a-hole the next day. It's amazing what happens. They've even done studies to show that even just 20 minutes of a delayed sleep over the course of a couple of weeks can really start to impact cognitive performance at the work site. And especially with construction workers out there, a lot of drivers out there, a lot of people that need that cognitive capacity, it's a huge problem. So we really, really, really want to get that dialed in. And oftentimes I have a lot of my clients that start talking to me about, well, which one's more important? Well, all of them. Which one are you struggling with the most? Start there. Most people, it's their thinking. Most people, they're not clear on what they actually want at all. And when we really start to dial in, hey, I just heard you say these 5 things. Were those your thoughts or somebody else's? That eventually they realize, oh, that wasn't me. That was somebody else, which is tricky because you're now listening to me tell you all these things, and you're going to start thinking, oh, he's telling me how to do all of this stuff, which when I tell people, I teach people how to take care of themselves, it sounds like that, right? But what I do when it comes to coaching somebody else is I always say, what are your goals? What is it that you are here to do? What is it that you need to accomplish in all 6 of these buckets to make sure that you're getting towards your goal? And if we can get even 1 to 3% closer over the course of 6 weeks, oh man, that's a huge difference of time. You keep going with that, narrowing it down to 5, 10% even tighter over the course of a year, dramatic transformations start to happen, even from just picking 1 or 2 of these and putting all of your focus on it. Sleep would probably be the number 2 that I have to harp on a lot of people because they're just working out too much and not taking the recovery time. And pretty soon, if you drive even the best race car in the world without any maintenance, it's gonna start having to come into the mechanic to get fixed. So I can't stress this enough. Listen to this a couple times. Those 6, thinking, breathing, moving, eating, drinking, and sleep, are the biggest foundational steps that you really got to get dialed in for a lot of your stuff that you're trying to do to work in your life. So I hope that information is very helpful to you guys. As always, have a happy and healthy rest of your day. I'll see you in the next one.